Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hekatior V7. Let's quickly recap. In V6, I share some advanced observation about hindbrain, trigger stack, some observation about visual typing in general, highlighting the Enneagram microexpression can help in potentially detecting the hindbrain type. Of course, as long as the Enneagram microexpression is used as an support to an holistic check, as well as I may notice how visual typing means nothing instead as far as SOGT is concerned. For example, identical twins can have very different Enneagram types and SOGT types. And lastly, some observation about flat effect. I will leave a link to V6 in description. So let's move to V7. Talk about links in description. I will leave a link to some observation by Katherine Fauvre on the instincts, positive, negative, and neutral identifications, as it can help further in detecting hindbrain types. But more importantly, I have some important updates to share. For starters, recently it turned out that in MBTI, I'm actually an ENTP, paired with Enneagram Tritype, Sexual 548 Artisan Scholar Sage, personally typed by Katherine Chernick Fauvre herself, whom happens to be MBTI certified and used to teach MBTI many years ago, including Combo of Ego Loss in Dissemination. Mine happened to be one of these, a true anomaly of an anomaly. Katherine explained me how it works. So basically, that has two key markers. First of all, it's either an introverted type with some extroverted traits and or can have the X in the IE range, can go either way, as long as the second marker is also present, which is the following. ENTPs feel the emotion of others better than any other type, disliking to feel all of that and quickly moving away. Additionally, the reading, feeling of own emotions is much slower. I counter-checked. She's right. I do score by dichotomy X and XP, and I have the emotional marker that she actually mentioned. Yeah. If anything, I find the whole situation amusing. Of course, I did the classical mistype, thinking first to be INTJ for a few years. Then later on realized it to be some kind of MP type, went by INTP for a while, and after 7 years I figured out, at long last, that in MBTI I'm actually more of an ENTP. Well, an anomalous version of ENTP, with sexual 548, neurodivergence, predominant traits being ADHD combined, giftedness, and emotional fluidity factor. Additionally, Katherine Fauvre mentioned that I'm the perfect example of an ENTP 5. I accepted the situation, it is what it is, and life moves on. I have done some graphical modification in the channel, in the banner, putting Aubrey Plaza laughing as hard as I did when I figured out the whole ENTP pattern in myself. That scene is from Hekatior All Along, where Aubrey Plaza played as Rio Vidal, aka Lady Duff. However, I won't spoil anything else for those that haven't seen the series. I updated my avatar to add Rio Vidal, Lady Duff, crown, as my combination is like the king of trolling in terms of atypical, and a bit also of the dress Rio uses as Lady Duff. So yeah, I'm using overall, and I updated my SOGD typing to the intuitive type, stage 2 of differentiation, which overall is the one that makes more sense. Anyhow, in the light of new events, I notice a glaring flaw within Jung. Jung made a massive mistake when he assigned abstract concrete to introversion extroversion. Myers-Briggs was actually right in switching it to intuition sensation. Now, she did sleeps on other areas, which then brought to agreement and phones, but credit where credit is due. On that aspect, she was right. I therefore rectified a comparison between Jung's psychological types versus MBTI. I will leave a link in the description to the analysis that I made. And as you can see, trying to do mental giri-gori by a false equivalence between Jung and MBTI just does not work. Plus, Jung never endorsed MBTI to begin with, as I mentioned in a previous version of Hekatior. And additionally, what I discovered means that SOGT in its original form by Jung is essentially a dead horse by now. As far as Hekatior is concerned, however, I was able to create a patch of sorta that reduces the damage caused by Jung's sleep back in the day. I will link the whole article in description, so yeah, I can keep use an improved version of the SOGT for the think versus feel part in Hekatior, and the show goes on. Having said that, the part that I mentioned about the flat effect can give indication the person be potentially neurotic, which actually make a nice transition towards the multidimensionality, because as I mentioned before, if someone has a flat effect, the chance of the person being neurotic is increased, and as a result, the person is more likely to be limbic in Big Five. And Big Five highlights a lot the concept of multidimensionality. Actually, there are some strong correlative patterns between Hekatior and Big Five. Plus, it allows me to make some important observations as well. So, let's get to it. Let's start by adding an important observation when it comes to neuroticism. I personally think that neuroticism has a 50-80% innate inborn predisposition. As in anything that is personality related, it's a mix of nature and nurture to some degree. There is going to be some predisposition and some nurturing elements that they mesh together. For example, often sixes tend to be neurotic. If you are a viewer of this video and you happen to be neurotic, yoga meditation can help you. Now let's move to the reserved social of B5. Now, tendentially, if someone has a preference toward the subjective factor, will score somewhat reserved in B5, and vice versa, if someone prefers the objective factor, is more likely with the person score as social in B5, with most people being somewhat in the middle, especially if 6 or 9 in the anagram. That being said, usually the most extroverted type on average in the anagram tend to be choose, whereas the most introverted tend to be the suppressed 5, the true loner of the anagram. Instinct, the triple focus, all it come together does make a difference. So for example, the surprise adding more to reservedness, the sexual being more a wild card, and the social adding more going hours to others on average. Next, agreeableness factor. On average, the most agreeable tend to be 9s and 2s, surprisingly, and the most disagreeable tend to be 8s, with the suppressed 5 being an honorable mention. The instincts also do have an effect. The agreeableness are many factors that influence in that, in my opinion, and it has to be evaluated case by case. Everyone is unique. Orderliness. On average, rational lead tend to be orderly, and the irrational lead unstructured. But then again, you can have the sessions. I add that Enneagram-wise, the most orderly, so scoring high in conscientiousness, would be unsurprisingly 1 and 3. The most unstructured on average would be type 7. So if someone has a hybrid type resent, is more likely than not the person who scores orderly in B5, especially if they are rational lead on top of that. Last but not least, openness. On average, the types that score the highest in openness when it comes to the Enneagram are 5s, as well also 7, 9 are more likely to score as non-inquisitive, but I don't mean to imply that 9s are automatically non-inquisitive, but there are plenty of 9s that are non-inquisitive. Additionally, the intellectual 9 that often have scholar as one of the top 2 visual archetypes, often accompanied by 5 in the S space, is likely to be inquisitive. There is something to it. A fault is not an automatic 101, and of course, as usual, everyone is unique, so for the specific B5 of someone, you need to evaluate case by case. Well, I guess that's it for today as far as VU7 is concerned, and stay tuned for more. Hope you find this informative. See you around.